Welcome back, my young listeners. You've returned for more tales from the old world, have you? Last time we spoke of leaves, grass, and royal rags. But today we sail beyond the shore to where men faced war, sea, and stench alike. And before this tale ends, you'll witness the dawn of a little role that changed history itself. The birth of toilet paper. Now sit back and let Grandpa take you there. Life on the open sea, where the ocean was your bathroom. The open sea in the 16th century was both a world of wonder and a floating prison. Imagine being a sailor aboard a creaking wooden vessel bound for unknown lands. The salty wind whipping across your face, the endless horizon stretching beyond sight, and beneath it all, the groaning timbers soaked in seawater and sweat. Life at sea was far from the romantic tales of adventure. These men lived in cramped quarters, sleeping shoulder to shoulder below deck, surrounded by barrels of dried fish, gunpowder, and the ever-present smell of tar and unwashed bodies. Bathing was a luxury they could not afford. Fresh water was reserved for drinking, and privacy was non-existent. When nature called, sailors didn't stroll to a restroom. They went straight to the ship's edge. Clutching a rope or the rail for balance as the vessel rocked beneath them, they would hang their rear over the ocean, praying not to fall into the freezing, shark-infested waves below. One wrong step, and you were gone, swept into the dark waters, never to be seen again. And as for toilet paper, the sea offered no such kindness. These men improvised. Some used handfuls of seawater, splashing themselves clean as best they could. Others used old scraps of hemp rope, frayed and rough but reusable, hanging them over the side to rinse in the tide. When rope was scarce, they tore strips from worn-out sailcloth, coarse as sandpaper, but better than nothing. The ocean became their bath, their latrine, and their confessional. Every man aboard knew this routine, and none spoke of it. The stench of salt, tar, and human waste lingered over the decks like a ghostly fog. Disease was an ever-present enemy. The damp, filth-ridden environment bred sickness faster than any storm. Dysentery and scurvy ravaged crews. The ship's surgeon could do little more than pray. A single infected man could doom the entire voyage. Yet somehow they kept sailing, chasing fortune, fame, and faith across the endless blue. Out there, amid the creaking masts and the roar of the waves, sailors learned one truth: the ocean gave and the ocean took away, even the most basic comforts of life. If life at sea was harsh, then life at war was pure misery. The 16th century was an age of conquest. Empires clashed from Europe to Asia, and men spilled blood over faith, gold, and power. But few remember the quieter killer that haunted every army: filth. Soldiers marched for weeks without rest, wearing the same linen shirts until they stiffened with grime. They slept in muddy fields, surrounded by horses, rats, and the stench of unwashed bodies. When the time came to relieve themselves, they did so wherever they stood, in trenches, behind carts, or simply into the dirt. To wipe clean, they used what nature offered: leaves, grass, or handfuls of dry earth. Some carried old scraps of fabric torn from worn clothing. Others used bits of straw or even their bare hands, rinsing in the nearest puddle if they were lucky. There were no bathhouses, no soap, and rarely even clean water. Camp followers, the women who cooked and mended clothes, did what they could to keep things clean. But disease always followed the drumbeat of war. Dysentery, typhus, and plague spread through the ranks faster than any cannonball. The smell of decay clung to everything,
the air, the tents, the food, the living, and the dead. Letters from soldiers of that time speak not of heroism, but of misery. They describe itching skin, lice crawling through their hair, and wounds festering for lack of washing. The latrines, dug too close to where they slept, overflowed after rain, turning camps into cesspools. Commanders learned that poor sanitation could destroy an army faster than the enemy's sword. Yet few could do much about it. Water was scarce, soap expensive, and discipline weak. For many men, the concept of hygiene was simple. Survive today. Worry about comfort? Never. In the end, war wasn't only fought with muskets and swords. It was fought against nature, hunger, filth, and disease. And most of the time, the filth won. As European powers reached the shores of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, they encountered not just new landscapes, but new ways of life. For the first time, men from England, Spain, Portugal, and France saw how other civilizations managed cleanliness, and it often left them astonished. In the lush tropics of the Caribbean and South America, indigenous people used what their environment offered in abundance. Soft mosses from riverbanks, smooth stones warmed by the sun, and handfuls of sand served as their tools for cleansing. In some coastal areas, people used coconut husks, naturally fibrous and surprisingly effective. To Europeans, these customs were strange, even shocking. Yet after weeks of travel and hardship, many sailors and colonists adopted them quickly. When cloth was too valuable and paper too rare, they learned to rely on the earth itself. In parts of Africa, travelers noted the use of water, similar to the traditions found in the Ottoman world, a method both cleaner and more refreshing than the European norm. In India, explorers witnessed ritual cleansing with water and smooth stones, guided by deep cultural and spiritual beliefs. These encounters changed more than habits. They opened minds. Over time, colonists began to combine the methods they saw abroad with their own, creating new routines that blended practicality with necessity. But even as they adapted, the challenges of colonial life were immense. The heat bred insects and disease. Clean water was often scarce. Many settlers fell ill not from battle or hunger, but from poor hygiene and infection. A single mistake, using contaminated water, failing to wash after work, could end in fever and death. For the colonists, learning how others stayed clean was not a matter of curiosity. It was a matter of survival. The cost of exploration. When comfort meant weakness, exploration came with a price. Every voyage, every conquest, every colony demanded not just bravery, but endurance. The 16th century was an age of iron will, when men left comfort behind to face storms, war, and disease. Weeks at sea turned into months, months into years. Clothes hardened with salt, skin cracked from wind and sun. The smell of sweat and mildew became part of life, something no one even noticed anymore. Privacy disappeared. Dignity faded. Men bathed rarely, perhaps once every few weeks, using seawater or rain when it came. Their teeth rotted, their hair grew wild, and their hands became rough and scarred. The idea of being clean was not measured in scent or softness, but in survival. To many explorers, filth was proof of labor and toughness. A man who smelled of the sea or the battlefield was respected. He had lived, fought, and endured. Cleanliness was for the wealthy back home, not for those who braved storms and starvation for the glory of their kings. And yet, amid all this hardship, there were moments of reflection. Alone under the stars, men thought of their families, of warm beds, of simple comforts like soap and fresh linen. The crackle of the ship's lantern and the sound of waves against the hull reminded them how far they had come and how far they had yet to go. Every scrape of rope, every groan of the hull was a reminder that life itself was a fragile thing. They were chasing empires, yes, but also survival. The ocean didn't care for their conquests. It only tested their endurance. When they returned home, many brought back more than maps and treasures. They carried the scars of discomfort, the habits of hardship, and the memory of what it meant to live without luxury. At sea, at war, and across foreign lands, the men of the 16th century shared one unspoken truth. Comfort was temporary, but survival was everything. They built empires, crossed oceans, and fought wars, all without the simple paper we take for granted today. In their struggle, they proved something timeless. Humanity always finds a way, even when dignity and comfort are stripped away by salt, blood, and mud. The dawn of toilet paper, how civilization wiped its way to modernity. From nature to necessity. In the late 16th and early 17th centuries, while ordinary people scraped by with leaves, moss, and scraps of cloth, and royals enjoyed more refined hygiene, humanity was quietly taking the first steps toward something revolutionary, the birth of modern toilet paper. Civilization, slowly but surely, began to recognize hygiene not just as an afterthought, but as a necessity. The journey from improvisation to invention is a fascinating tale of ingenuity, culture, and societal transformation. It's a story that winds through faraway lands, workshops filled with curious craftsmen, and eventually into the homes of the everyday person. Long before modern toilet paper, various civilizations had already experimented with materials designed for cleaning. In China, as early as the 6th century, the elite had access to sheets of paper specifically created for personal hygiene. By the Tang dynasty, imperial courts used soft, perfumed paper, often cut into squares, a luxury reserved for royalty and high-ranking officials. Meanwhile, in the Middle East and parts of the Mediterranean, water played a vital role. Societies developed sophisticated water-based cleansing practices, and simple tools such as clay or metal scoops were used in combination with water to maintain hygiene. This highlights a fascinating truth. Civilization's approach to wiping was influenced not only by available materials, but also by geography, climate, and culture. Yet, in Europe, such innovations were slow to reach the masses. The majority relied on the methods we've seen in earlier sections: leaves, moss, straw, and scraps of cloth. It wasn't until the rise of paper manufacturing that European society began inching toward a true hygiene revolution. From writing to wiping, paper itself had a long, winding history. Invented in China during the Han Dynasty, it gradually spread across Asia and eventually Europe, becoming more affordable in the late medieval period. At first, paper was a precious commodity, reserved primarily for writing, record-keeping, and art. But as literacy and bureaucracy grew, so did paper production. The key moment came in the 16th century when craftsmen and inventors began experimenting with softer, thinner paper. Initially, these sheets were intended for delicate correspondence. But enterprising minds realized that soft paper could serve another purpose: cleaning oneself after using the restroom. It's fascinating to imagine that the same sheets used to pen royal decrees or love letters might have ended up performing one of humanity's most intimate duties: the first commercial toilet paper. By the late 19th century, though still centuries after the first experiments, toilet paper as we know it began to appear in stores. Joseph Gaiety, in 1857, marketed the first commercially packaged toilet paper in the United States. Each sheet was infused with aloe and sold as a medical product, promising cleanliness and comfort. However, the road to widespread adoption was far from smooth. Many people were suspicious of buying paper for a task that had always been improvised. There was a cultural and psychological hurdle. How could something so soft, so refined, possibly replace leaves or cloth scraps, the tools of centuries? It took advertising, industrial innovation, and gradual social acceptance to transform toilet paper from a novelty to a household staple. The story is not just about invention. It's about humanity's willingness to adapt and embrace comfort, convenience, and hygiene as part of daily life. Hygiene meets industry. The 19th and early 20th centuries saw rapid industrialization, and with it, the production of toilet paper became increasingly sophisticated. Large factories emerged, rolling out soft, perforated sheets and rolls, the iconic shape we recognize today. Mass production allowed toilet paper to become affordable and accessible to the average household. Where once it was a luxury or an afterthought, it now became a standard of personal hygiene. Education and public health campaigns reinforced the importance of cleanliness, gradually changing social norms. Interestingly, the rise of toilet paper parallels other societal advancements: plumbing, sanitation, and urban planning, highlighting how technology, culture, and public health evolved together. Cultural shifts, acceptance, and taboo. Even with mass production, toilet paper carried social and cultural baggage. Talking about hygiene was often taboo. In many households, parents would quietly introduce it to their children without discussion, perpetuating a mix of curiosity and embarrassment. Despite these initial awkwardnesses, the use of toilet paper steadily gained acceptance. Families realized the convenience, cleanliness, and comfort it offered, and gradually, what had once been a luxury became a necessity. The shift was gradual but undeniable. Humanity was entering a new era where hygiene was no longer purely functional, but also a marker of civilization and progress. The modern era, innovation never stops. Today, toilet paper is ubiquitous, but innovation hasn't stopped. Ultra-soft papers, recycled options, scented varieties, and even bidet-compatible sheets show that civilization continues to adapt its approach to hygiene. Yet, understanding the journey helps us appreciate just how far humanity has come. From leaves and moss to luxurious silk, perfumed paper in royal courts, and eventually the soft rolls on every bathroom shelf, the history of wiping is a story of ingenuity, necessity, and cultural evolution. In some ways, the humble roll of toilet paper is more than a convenience. It's a testament to humanity's ability to solve problems, embrace innovation, and gradually improve life, one sheet at a time. The story of toilet paper, from its primitive beginnings to the modern rolls in our bathrooms, is a reflection of society itself. It tells us about class, technology, adaptation, and the human drive for comfort. By examining this journey, we see that even the most mundane aspects of life, how we clean ourselves, carry rich histories and lessons. Ordinary people, royalty, inventors, and industrialists all played their parts in creating the modern bathroom experience. Next time you grab a sheet, remember, you're holding a small piece of human history, a culmination of centuries of adaptation, innovation, and social evolution.
Well, my boy, we've come quite a long way, haven't we? From sailors wiping with salt-soaked ropes, to kings demanding silk, to the humble paper roll sitting quietly in every home today. It's a funny thing when you think about it. The story of toilet paper isn't just about cleanliness. It's about civilization learning, adapting, and finding comfort in the smallest corners of life. So next time you reach for that soft roll, give a little nod to the past, to the sailors, the peasants, and the dreamers who wiped their way into history. Now, before this old man rambles on, I'll just say, stay curious, stay humble, and remember, history isn't always written in books. Sometimes it's hidden in the most ordinary things. Be ready for the next tale, and don't forget to subscribe. Candle Hearth, 1600s, my boy.